Hello and welcome to Journeys, a MACSA podcast. Today I'm here with Clarissa de la Garza, who is a clarinetist, pianist, and composer. She's also on faculty here at MACSA in piano and clarinet. We're delighted to have you today, Clarissa. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I was excited to talk to you because you have, basically when I started to get exposed to your compositions, it's like this whole new world opened up. I know you as a pianist, I know you as a clarinet performer. And I'm excited later to get into that more into your compositions. But first I want to talk about how your journey started, how you got into music, how you got into clarinet and piano. So take us back in time, and how did this journey begin for you?
So both of my parents are musicians. Actually, I come from a whole family of musicians. My dad's a drummer and a singer. My mom is a pianist and a singer. So I kind of grew up with music around the house all the time.
Fantastic.
My grandparents were musicians. My grandmother was a bass clarinetist. My grandfather was a violinist and a clarinetist.
Okay.
So just music around the house all the time.
Wow.
When I was really young, I had more of an interest in art, actually.
Okay.
I wasn't terribly interested in taking lessons as a kid, but when I homeschooled, actually, around middle school, early high school, I started taking clarinet lessons with the local professor at the university where I'm from. And he really helped me kind of open up a lot more as a musician and inspired me a lot. And that's where my journey mostly started. Okay. The professor invited me to play with his clarinet choir at the university.
Wow.
So I was 13 when I started playing with them as just a guest performer, I guess. And that's kind of where I started from there.
I wonder sometimes, do you think that, did your initial interest in art, was it any part of that you were trying to kind of have a separate voice, or it's something different, or was it, do you know what I mean? I'm just curious about that.
That's a super interesting question. I don't think it was on purpose. I just always liked drawing and making things and crafting things and building things. I've always been that.
Okay.
But I was really happy that music became a part of it later on. And eventually when I was in high school, I was kind of at a crossroads with what I wanted to do going forward, because I had a very strong interest in architecture, graphic design. I thought maybe I would get into advertising and things like that, but music just kind of never left me, and I decided that that's what I wanted to do instead.
So you had a very strong pull. I mean, those are a really amazing creative things, and I really think I see some of that architecture in your compositions. Actually, really? I want to get into that a little bit later. We often will combine, all these different interests and different ways throughout our careers and our lives. And I can can kind of see that. But anyway, so when you decided that you wanted to do music, was there a particular, like an event, or was it a kind of a gradual realization? Because at some point you had to say, I'm going to go to college for this. There was a point where you had to, make it kind of real. Do you recall that?
Yeah, so music, was largely an outlet for me. It was more of a hobby, but it was something that I very, very much enjoyed. My high school band experience was a little bit rough. The push was to win and to be the best. And there was a lot of anger, I guess, from the teachers there. But when I went to my private lessons with my clarinet professor, it was just a totally different world. And he was very calm and kind and caring. And he would serve me hot tea. And it was just this very peaceful environment. And I realized that there had to be more to teaching than what I knew from the band. And I wanted to explore that side of things. And I wanted to share music with others in the way that my teacher did with me.
How did you first meet Dr. O'Neill, is that right? So how did you first meet him?
Yeah, so the homeschooling group that I was a part of in 8th grade, one of the parents talked to my mom, and she said, my son's in this symphony. Okay. And where the symphony would meet was on campus, and back then it was called University of Texas Pan American, before they went through that big change.
Yes.
And so on Sundays we would have our rehearsals there. And it so happened that Dr. O'Neill was around at the time, and he was recommended to my parents, and that's how we met. And they reached out to him, and he agreed to take me on for lessons. So, I was homeschooling, so I could just go. I think, if I remember correctly, clarinet choir rehearsal was Tuesday and Thursday mornings at 11 a.m.
Oh, I see.
Which
Okay.
I was able
Yeah.
to do.
Yes, right.
And I don't remember, one of those days was when I would go in for my lesson an hour before. And so I would have my lesson with him and then go to rehearsal, go home and have lunch and continue with the rest of my school day at home.
Well, that sounds like a pretty wonderful way to get started. Let's talk a little bit about then. So now it's time you're going to go to college, right? You're deciding what to do, and I think you stayed in down in the valley, right, for your bachelor's degree. Is that
I
right?
did, and I continued to study with Dr. O'Neill
Okay,
officially
okay,
as an
okay,
undergraduate
okay.
student. So that's what I had done there.
Did the relationship shift at all when you became a college student?
It stayed the same.
You still got the tea and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, then that's
So I think by the end of it, I studied with him for 10 years before I finally
Wow.
graduated. So
That's
from
fantastic.
8th all the way through.
That's big.
Yeah.
That's big time.
So he's more of a personal friend now, and we still
Right.
keep in touch.
Yeah, it's really kind of amazing. I'm getting to experience that some with my own alumni. They become these fantastic, like, lifelong friends, and it's really amazing to continue hearing about their journey, and sometimes I get to help them a little bit on that, and that's wonderful that he's doing that with you as well. That's fantastic. So then you come to San Antonio, and you just finished your master's degree, which is a massive thing to do. And what led you to UTSA then for your master's?
Well, a couple of things. I'm pretty tethered to this area right now,
Right, of course.
for my work. But so UTSA was around and convenient,
Right.
but I was also very drawn to the clarinet professor there, Dr. Nicholas Counselor, who I studied with.
Yes.
He just had a very impressive background. He looked younger, and I thought that maybe he would offer a fresh perspective. Dr. O'Neill was a little more traditional, old-fashioned.
Right, okay.
And I felt that I needed a change, so to
Yes,
speak. And
yeah.
the decision to go back ultimately came from I'm sure a lot of teachers probably feel that they may plateau in their performing because they
Sure.
spend so much time in the classroom, in the
Yeah.
lesson room, and they're not playing as much as they used to. And I didn't want that to happen to me. I knew that I wanted more. I wanted to continue to grow and improve. And so I sent him an email, and he responded back within the day,
Yeah.
offered a free lesson. I went in and studied with him, and I auditioned a week later.
Wow.
So it
That's
was really, really cool. And he definitely offered that fresh perspective that I needed. So I feel that my education's a little more well-rounded now. Yeah, so I went
first
in
lesson, yeah.
for that lesson. It was mostly to hear me on my audition materials
Okay.
for the entrance audition, right? And I was playing Weber's Concerto in F, the third movement. And it's a fantastic movement. So
Awesome.
Weber's known for his operatic
Okay.
writing.
Oh, yes.
And
okay.
my clarinet performance, as I thought at the time, was clean and correct. And he showed me there's so much more than clean and correct.
Oh, I see, I
He
see,
said,
I see. Yeah.
you're playing so safe. Open
yes,
up, just
yes,
sing. You know how to
yes,
play. And I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
I do know how to play. Do you mean I'm allowed to do that? And
yeah.
he said, you don't need my permission to do that. Sing, be an opera,
Right, right,
opera performer.
yes.
And I realized that I had needed more of
Yeah.
that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your journey in composition. So when did that start for you?
That started when I was in high school. It was more of just an independent interest. I asked my dad for Christmas, can I please have Finale?
Are you
And he
serious?
said, what is that? I said, I don't know. It's some software where you
Okay.
write music. And he said, okay. And he bought me Finale. And I would just doodle and make little pieces. For a time, they weren't really that significant, but that was
Sure.
how I started. That
Okay.
was my sketch pad. That was my new sketch pad.
Got
And I
it.
used to draw and
I
doodle.
see.
Now
Okay,
I
yes.
was making music,
Okay.
and it just kind of evolved from there. And when I was an undergrad, I hit a huge, I guess, moment where I was like, I can study other things other than just clarinet. And I
okay.
took composition lessons, I took piano lessons, I took conducting lessons. I did everything. I wanted to learn all the
so you
stuff.
just bring it on.
I overloaded my hours and did like 20-hour semesters, and composition was in there.
Okay.
And that was where I was actually shown actual techniques and, a little bit more refined methods of putting my stuff together.
Well, I was really excited to hear all the repertoire on your website, that it's so varied, and it's the selections you put on there shows such a great range, and so I wanted to listen to some of those things and talk to you about it a little bit.
Okay.
Like I said, I could hear the architecture, and of course I'm just listening, one time through, and but they're very engaging, and I think also like one of the pieces is for early level clarinet.
Right.
That's the Eventide, I think, the sonata. And I also thought the piano part is very accessible as well. It's having accessible and also interesting pieces for people that are in high school. I'm not sure what the target group was for you necessarily, but I mean those are hard to find. It's hard to find pieces that work really well for that level of student. It's a great piece. Now, this sonata number 1 implies that you either have a sonata 2 or you're going to, do you have other ones in the works?
So there is an entire collection planned of beginner-friendly clarinet music that is made to, inspire a little bit beyond what middle school students are typically exposed to. When we play piano music for beginners, there's so much out there. There's an entire world, and even the piano adventures, the Faber stuff. It's adventurous, fun, expressive music that's easily accessible. Clarinet doesn't really have that. They have their band concerts, but they don't have the opportunity to perform solos in the way that pianists do. Usually the music that they just play is their band stuff.
Right.
In a large group, they don't get the opportunity to explore that more expressive side of their performance. And so this piece was born from that. I wanted to create thoughtful, expressive stuff that kids could play. That sounds mature.
I love that. That's a good example of, again, your crossover between doing piano and clarinet as well. So because we are, blessed with a vast repertoire at the different levels for piano. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. So first of all, it's so pretty. And then also, it's like, aha, we're going to work on some long tones here and holding that out. And we're going to be, I'm imagining it's almost like an etude in a sense. Like I'm imagining this. No, I don't know. I do not play clarinet. Okay, so I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm going to make that very, very clear. But it seems like this would be, controlling that tone going down is an important thing to learn how to do, especially those long notes after you've done the shorter notes. I'm just imagining that would be hard, and it's done in a very pretty way. Am I capturing that goal?
Yeah, so it's right in that sweet spot of the left hand upper joint notes that all the beginner players are constantly using in their first year.
This is something I know nothing
and
about.
All of the music for the beginner level is typically in the key of B flat.
Okay.
And so this just uses those notes in the key of B flat, but with a more adventurous twist on the accompaniment to make the harmonies more refreshing.
Let's take a listen to this one. To stop that. It's so pretty. What I think is amazing, again, is it's a very straightforward idea, right? It's alternating thirds, and you've got these cool bass notes shifting the harmonies there, and some really yummy chords underneath it, which would make that, we talked a little bit about a musical experience earlier, that the person playing this, on the clarinet, would probably be like, wow, they're practicing it alone, and then they get the piano part in there, and it's like a real awakening. I'm imagining that those thirds are also pedagogically there's something for that too.
Yeah, and the pitches that are used are
Uh-huh.
also very well within the kinds of things that they learn in the first year.
Okay.
They start reading their B flats, they
Mhm.
start reading their G sharps, they start reading their
Right.
C sharps down, but most of it is primarily in that left hand.
Mhm.
So it's all very pedagogically sound
Mhm.
for an early player.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I thought was particularly amazing. Of course, your other pieces that you have to massively virtuosic things, but when you have to kind of restrain yourself, architecturally, right? That's where you really see some resourcefulness, and creativity there. So it's really, and it's beautiful.
Thank
It's
you.
It's titled Midnight, and it has that, haunting quality to it, which is just absolutely lovely. So again, now I've learned something from you, which is that area of the clarinet that uses a lot of left hand, and that's something that they get exposed to a lot. This again seems to be emphasizing that area, right? And then of course the pianist has got more work in this one.
Yeah, a little bit.
But that's okay, because actually even with the more work, it's arpeggios and it's things that everybody's supposed to be practicing, and it's. But I also think that it's really cool that. One of the nice things about a multi-movement piece is that you can definitely do one movement and it would be fine. But to get the experience of what it's like to do a multi-movement piece for a younger player is also, I think, kind of a profound thing to do for those that do more. Anything you want to mention about that otherwise?
I guess also a lot of kids, especially in more recent generations, are exposed to music or concert music through film and video game type stuff.
Yes, of course.
And so I tried to create a scenic picture. So the three movements are dusk and midnight and dawn.
Oh,
so they can follow the
Perfect.
visual element of
Yeah.
sun going down, it's
Yes.
dark, and then the sun comes up at the end, just to help them kind of get into the, I guess, appropriate mindset or character.
Go beyond the page somewhat. Like go beyond, go into some imagery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of note painting, I guess.
Yeah.
With the
Okay.
imagery, there's a lot of descending patterns in the sun going down, and then there's a lot of
course.
ascending patterns in the sun coming up.
Yes. That makes
So
complete
it helps
sense.
them kind of learn
Yeah.
a little bit more
Right.
about why
Mhm.
music does the things that it does and why it
Mhm.
makes us feel a certain way, and
Right.
how they can link with the more psychological aspects of that.
Right, and it also harkens back to your art in a way, like you're painting and notes now, as well as and having a visual element, which again is very powerful when you link together these different parts of ourself. Let's jump to something quite different. Yes. Stop for just a second. So one of the things I noticed about this that I thought was so interesting. So you have these fortissimo, like crazy chords, in the piano part, and then the clarinet part is pianissimo.
Right?
So I thought that's because the other thing you're playing with here is like the sound lingering in the piano. And what happens, of course, in the piano, the sound's decaying, and in the clarinet, the sound is still alive. I just thought it was so interesting as a
So
choice.
the way that the piece was constructed,
Uh-huh.
it's actually both through composed and symmetrical in a way. The clarinet does A, B, C, B, A,
Okay.
and the piano just A, B, C, D, E.
Oh, interesting.
And the reason why it's
Okay.
called five spatial
Mhm.
abstractions is because they're playing with intervallic functions. So
Mhm.
the first is the clusters,
Mhm.
then the tritones, then the
Mhm.
seconds, then the thirds, and then the
Okay.
fourths, fifths at the very end.
Okay.
So it goes from dissonance to consonance by the very end of the piece.
Yes. And I noticed that and again, because I noticed the structure kind of revealing itself going through. It was helpful to be looking at the score actually, because I kept thinking, oh wow, I'm seeing all these interesting patterns, even with the time signatures.
This one is a lot more carefully crafted than some of
Okay.
the others. It's not as personally inspired, but it
Mhm.
was very academic.
Okay, yeah, so
type
you're
of a
like, you're
piece.
like what is it? Your challenge. The limitation there, in a sense, is like I'm going to be creating patterns, as opposed to the other pedagogical piece. It was like I'm going to work this into something that a person who's getting started with clarinet can play. Right?
Yeah, this is definitely not for a starting clarinet.
Oh, no.
This is a lot more challenging.
This is a lot more challenging, for sure. Yeah.
But I would hope that it could inspire a little bit more of that creative side of the brain, just to kind of experience what melodies and harmonies could be like from an alternate perspective.
Yeah. Next one I want to talk about is this impromptu on a D flat. So one of the things I thought was kind of just amusing was that it's called impromptu on a D flat. Oh, on a D flat 7. Okay. So which I liked that title.
Okay.
I don't know, it appealed to me. But one of the things that I was thinking is that it's very, again, that you're creating some interesting limitations, and you tell us at the very beginning, you're telling us this is what this is going to be about. This is the structure of this piece, and it reminded me a lot of like the certain Bach preludes that will explore, just harmonies, and that can be, and one of the challenges. It also reminded me a little bit of like some of the John Adams. I'm thinking of China Gates, those kind of minimalist pieces that can be, again, challenging to retain interest because you're dealing with, minimal materials. Yet it's so interesting how you vary it, and then this middle section has some very interesting rhythmic structures and in it as well. So anyway, tell me a little bit about what this piece and what your thoughts are.
So this piece is actually a special one for me. It's not my most significant one, but it's what actually got me out of a creative rut that I had for a few years.
Okay.
I was at TMEA, I think 2019 or 2018, I think. And I got the brief chance to speak with Eric Whitaker.
Okay.
And he gave me some advice on composing, and he said, just try writing something with 4 notes.
Oh, that's so cool.
Just only 4 notes.
I love it.
And don't let yourself use anything other than those 4 notes.
Yes.
And I was so inspired by that. And I thought, well, what can I do with just 4?
Yes.
And it encouraged me to explore rhythm, range, inversions, all kinds of things. And this was the culmination of that.
Yeah.
And it made me realize I had a lot more in me than I thought I did.
Isn't that amazing?
All these other pieces came after the impromptu.
This is very important then. That's really amazing. So again, that's a piece of your journey, right? That's so amazing that after this, it's like that's almost sounds like your second piano concerto by Rachmaninoff. Rachmaninoff was stuck too, and he came up with that second concerto out of his rut. But this piece is so interesting, and I didn't know that story. Sometimes what it is that we're stuck, but and the answer is already in there. Like the answer was in there. This piece was in you, right? It had to be if it came out that quickly. Yet it needed a catalyst of some kind of catalyst. And sometimes what it is we look. I usually say to people, like, frustration should lead to innovation if you want to overcome it. Okay, now we're going to get to the pieces that I actually told you we were going to look at. I have like a life in music myself, and the fact that I have not heard a lot of clarinet choirs is kind of insane. But it's true. I just haven't heard it. But it's such a great ensemble. It's so rich. I mean, talk about richness of sound. My goodness, it's just quite astounding. So this is, I think we have, this was done for the UTSA Clarinet Choir. Is that right? Yeah,
it was commissioned by the UTSA Clarinet Choir for a performance at, or their first performance at TMEA this last February.
Okay. So this is a new choir too.
Yeah, they were just formed 2 years ago.
Like, well, that's why I haven't heard them before.
When I showed up, that was their first semester existing as an ensemble.
Okay, I feel a little bit better about missing out on this. But yeah.
Yeah, and the thing that's really cool about the clarinet choir as an ensemble is that the range is just huge. We have the E flat, which is the higher clarinet high range, all the B flats, and then you've got the alto, the bass, and the contrabass. You got the whole range of notes, but also the different textures, the different tonal characters that the instruments have. There's not a whole lot of original repertoire for clarinet choir. They play very frequently arrangements of orchestral music that already exists, and so just trying to make new music out there and throw it out into.
That's fantastic because when it's made for that ensemble, you're going to explore like the colors and the timbres, whatever that you're that are present, you're going to be using that as inspiration. It kills me to stop that. I wanted to get through into that opening part. They're talking about rhythmic interest. That's like so catchy and it's such an interesting rhythm. But those opening chords just have a great, I don't know, some combination of an open sound, as well as just the tones themselves are so rich. It's crazy. It must be amazing. I mean, you're in this performance itself. To hear all that around you has got to be amazingly cool. And I also noticed that everybody has to work. I'm so glad that you noticed that, actually, because that is something that I'm intentionally doing with my ensemble music. I wanted everybody to have fun. And so I give solos to every part. Everybody works. Everybody works. Yeah, I was pretty clear, because it was actually fun to even watch it, because I could see the,
they're passing around.
That was actually just visually also kind of cool. Let's do impressions. Now this one is really yet another contrast in some ways. This is for 2 pianos, bass clarinet, and drums. And if I recall, part of the inspiration for this is heavy metal music, and which I guess the drums play a role in that, right? Am I capturing this right? I don't want to be misrepresenting.
A lot of it is in the form and the format, progressive rock and metal particularly.
Okay. I know nothing about this, by the way. So
prog is so great. Yeah, okay. It's a lot of virtuosic performing from all the musicians in the ensemble. Right. A lot of mixed time signatures. I'm a huge rhythms person.
I could tell.
Yes. Yeah, so this is a rhapsody with a lot of different sections, and it plays with a lot of the themes I also like about prog, especially albums like larger works, is the thematic elements of storytelling in the narrative and the lyrics, and the note painting and all of that kind of stuff. So this one is actually about the stages of grief after a certain event, and so you kind of ride out all of the stages with that.
So I'm a big fan of, I'm a biased fan of piano, and you have 2 pianos here, and so I was curious what was it about having that much piano you were wanting to. What was that choice about?
I just had too many notes that I wanted, and I needed more hands, and that's pretty much it.
Makes sense. Okay. it was also cool. This is a live performance at your master's recital too.
Right.
and the pianist played beautifully. The drummer played beautifully. Everybody's played it so well. Was that, I think it can be sometimes challenging whenever we're learning a completely new work. How was that, just rehearsing and getting it prepared?
It was actually really scary putting that one together. We only had one rehearsal.
Oh my goodness, are you serious?
One with everybody. Yeah.
Wow.
The scheduling was just really hard to get everyone together. For the space, I mean, we had to use the hall.
Right.
And the hall, we could only get it one night.
Oh my gosh.
So we were there like at 11 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Practicing.
These are the stories you don't hear. Like this is real life. You were doing a new version of the Impressions, is that right?
I am. It's a solo with electronics version.
Okay.
Hoping that it's more accessible for performers because they can just play it alone with a track.
The scheduling problems are reduced.
The scheduling problems are eliminated. There's no setup of instruments. And it's actually going to be performed at the International Clarinet Association's Clarinet Fest event in Dallas next year.
Oh, that's
next summer.
That is a big deal. That's
Really so I'm really excited for that.
Yeah.
And it's closer to my original vision for the sound of it. So I'm really, really excited for that project.
That is going to bring down the house. That is like I can't imagine what that's got to be the whole through the whole thing. But that is so cool. That is going to be amazingly cool. What's fun then is you're here more of the progressive rock element there with all the different instrumentation. But the hijinks and whatever. I think I'm not sure how many other bass clarinet pieces have this.
I don't know.
Right? I mean, this is going to be like crazy. You're probably going to make some people very upset, and you're going to make 90% of people just like really excited.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I mean, you come on. In a way, that's good, making some of those people upset, because then you're really doing something cutting edge, and that is so cool. So are you finding it? I mean, I can tell you must be having fun with this.
Yeah. So this is actually my first time working with electronic. With a DAW, and virtual instruments. I mean, I did this in GarageBand for free.
I love it.
I downloaded a plugin for
they all start
but it's been a really fun experience. And one of the things I'm excited about in particular with this piece being performed at ICA's Clarinet Fest is that their theme for next year is all about transcending conventional practices.
That is
and
so perfect. Just
kind of celebrating how the clarinet has been a part of newer history moving forward. So I'm really excited for this one.
I'm kind of like, this will be amazing. People are going to be talking about this.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's really cool. Well, what would be really cool is before this performance happens, maybe we can have, remind me the performer again?
Dr. Counselor.
Dr. Counselor. Maybe we could have a chat with him about what it's like to prepare a piece for electronics, and what it's been like because he also commissioned, I think, the other some of the things for the clarinet choir, and that would be kind of fun. So maybe we can do that later. But anyway, I highly encourage everybody to check out Clarissa's website. We'll put a description in the description of the website. She has her scores there. You can purchase scores there. You can also hear a lot of her repertoire. And wow, it's just been such fun to talk to you today.
Thank you. Yeah.
Really appreciate you sharing this with us, and I'm just really excited for all the things you have going on.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us as well. We'll see you next time.